What is happening, everybody? It is Trey here. I'm joined again by my dad, Sean, and we are to the next edition of going through the Beatles in chronological order. We're up to Rubber Soul. It's been a great journey thus far. Excited to dive into this one. And if this is your first time joining us, we appreciate you stopping by. Hear reactions to the classics. We go over classic albums in a detailed track-by-track format. A lot of the times, just like this one, it's our first time listening to the record. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. All that fun stuff to say. Let's get started with some quick facts, Sean.
Let's do it. This thing was released on December 3rd, 1965 in the UK. There were no singles released from this album on either the British or the US versions, but in Britain on December 3rd, 1965, they released a double A single of Day Tripper and We Can Work It Out. It's a kind of an interesting way to release. 6th of the 12 Beatles albums released in the UK. As usual, they altered the North American version. We're not going to get into that. We review the UK version because that's the way they originally wanted it to be. This bad boy ranks number 5 on the Rolling Stones top 500 albums of all time.
And this has a blend of pop, soul, and folk.
All kinds of stuff.
And this was nice too because they were able to record this uninterrupted from their touring schedule. They had a nice tight deadline. They wanted to get it out before Christmas. So they had to rush, especially at the end of the last day. They recorded 3 songs at
they recorded the last day from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m.
And this is one of the first steps they did to having the album format itself as an artistic format, something they continue on in Revolver and Sgt. Pepper's.
Yeah, and before this, it was all about making singles and then album filler, and they got away from that. And not only did they get away from it, by making this album, they made everybody else look at things differently.
This was the first album where the Beatles had complete creative control of what they were able to do, and with Martin, their producer, the unsung hero of the Beatles, being his classic arrangements, and they had access to EMI's instruments, for everything from the sitar to all these different amplifiers. And
they said they just go open up. They were all in a big closet. They just open them up, try to figure out what they were, and they try to use them.
So a bunch of different stuff, which got some very unique sounds on this record.
Harrison actually said this is his favorite Beatles album, so I thought that was interesting. George Martin said it was a delight to make. However, this is the first time where we see a little fracturing of the Beatles. McCartney and Lennon got into it a lot in the studio, and there was just some tension because they spent all their time in the studio, as you alluded to. They were trying to create a masterpiece. As a matter of fact, only 2 of these songs were ever played live.
That's right.
Because they're so studio produced, not in a bad way, in a great way, that it can't be recreated on stage. All right, first song, Drive My Car, Trey. McCartney wrote it. McCartney sings it. It's credited McCartney with Lennon on the vocals. It's about a woman who tells McCartney that he can be her chauffeur.
Yeah, she's going to be famous one day.
He can drive her car, and then later on it comes about that she doesn't even have a car, but at least she's got a driver when she needs one.
I thought it was a great way to start the album. I know the US version starts with I've Just Seen a Face from Help, which they wanted it more folk-tinged in the US, but here I just thought it was a banging opener. Very different type of sound, as you mentioned, and I thought the lyrics and the story itself were getting more complex. They reverse roles from the guy and girl. Usually a guy's going to have a woman come after him and say, "Oh, let me do something." This time it's the opposite. I thought it was just a great way to open the album, and had some humor in it as well. Then we get into Norwegian Wood. This bird has flown. This is hailed by many critics as just a huge step in their lyrical progression. Very mature song, as you can see when you dive into the lyrics. Kind of influenced by Bob Dylan. And Harrison uses the sitar here. He, of course, is a big disciple of Ravi Shankar.
The sitar is a big thing because the Rolling Stones didn't start to use it. The Byrds start to use it. It just kind of starts to take
over. The Western audience gets more used to it.
Exactly.
And this is kind of about how, again, you have a role reversal of the guy and the girl. This time a girl invites a guy up to her room, and they talk for a while. The guy's hoping to get lucky, essentially. She goes to bed.
He sleeps in her bathtub.
Yeah, he's all disappointed. She leaves. He wakes up the next morning. He lights a flame, and then at the end he says, "Oh, Norwegian Wood." It's just all up in flames.
He burns it to the ground, and Lennon was very honest later on about what this song was about. He said he stepped out on his then wife Cynthia many times, and he wrote this about just a generalized affair. He said no woman in mind, just kind of his experiences. Next up, we're to You Won't See Me. It's McCartney written on, like many songs, Trey, in this time period, it's about his relationship with Jane Asher, his longtime girlfriend. They were having issues. She had stayed at home and kind of did what he wanted before this, but she's 4 years younger than him. She's almost 20 at this point. She wants to be an actor. She goes and takes a job in a play, and boy, he was not happy.
I thought the harmonies here were really cool. Like, you know, McCartney says, "You won't see me," and then in the background you get the harmonies, just the patented Beatles, "You won't see me."
Very good.
I thought it was excellent. And then next up we get to Nowhere Man. Whew, this thing was unbelievable.
Awesome.
Never heard it, you know, like most of these songs on here, but this thing is so catchy. And this is one of the first songs that were completely unrelated to love or romance, really.
Yes.
And I just thought it was excellent, dude. The songwriting here was just tremendous.
Yeah, and Lennon wrote it. He was trying to come up with another song. He couldn't come up with a song. He said about 5 hours went by. And so he just finally decided to go lay down. And as soon as he laid down, this whole thing just came to him. He said lyrics, music, all of it. He laid it down. To me, the catchiest song on here, I have Nowhere Man, the chorus going through my head for the last 48 hours straight. Awesome song.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he starts off saying you kind of think this guy's a loser, he's a nowhere man, and then it kind of progresses to where, you know, he's a lot like you and me, the nowhere man. So I think it's a good place to relate because no matter what age you are, you can kind of find yourself like in the nowhere land, essentially. It's a relatable song and one that really stood out to me on this record.
All right, we're up to the first Harrison-led track, Think For Yourself. He wrote it, he sings it. Interpretation is it's political. Think for yourself, man. One of the big innovations on this is our boy Sir Paul plays the bass guitar through a fuzz box, which is one of the first times that happened on a major recording album, and it's a really good song.
Yeah, I think this is my favorite Harrison track to date, actually, and again, I just see his songwriting progress through time. I thought this was a good precursor to psychedelic music. I think it comes from that Fuzzbox, Sean, and just a really good track. Again, big themes, think for yourself, don't just be fed what other people tell you, just go out and see the world and interpret it in your own lens. So another big hit for me on this one. Then we get into the Lennon-led The Word. Spoiler alert, The Word is Love. I thought this thing was great, and this was written after McCartney and Lennon smoked some marijuana. It's kind of known as the Pot album.
Yeah, Lennon called it that.
And you know, Lennon said that helped the writing process. McCartney wasn't a big a fan of it, said it kind of got in the way at points.
Yeah, I mean, it's the typical Lennon, McCartney, and Harrison sing the harmony together. Lennon sings the middle eight by himself. Just another strong track, really, really good. Well, next up, Trader, the last song on the A side, Michelle, sung by McCartney, written by McCartney mainly. Lennon added a little bit to it. Some of it's sung in French. It's a love song.
Yeah, and this is interesting because McCartney actually asked a French teacher, the wife of one of his friends from back in the day, like, he had the word Michelle, and he's like, well, is there anything in French that rhymes with Michelle? And she said, ma belle, and that means my love. So it kind of just worked out as a love song. And it's interesting because you have some French phrases in here. I'm not even going to attempt
neither am I
to pronounce them. But this actually won the '67 Grammy for Song of the Year. Personally, it'd be towards the bottom for me, actually, on this album. I mean, I still dug it, but compared to some of the other songs later on that we get, and even the McCartney-led tracks, I think this is one of the weaker ones on here from McCartney, even though it's still good. Yeah,
and that's where I'm at. I mean, I know this song is very popular. I can see how it's catchy. I didn't personally care for it a lot. I mean, I still like it, but it would definitely be towards the bottom for me.
Then we go into our patented Ringo track on each record. This was a lot more upbeat than the previous kind of somber Michelle, and this is the only song in the band's catalog to be credited to Lennon, McCartney, and Starkey.
They asked Ringo, what did you contribute to the songwriting? He said, about 5 words, and I haven't done anything since, he said jokingly. And actually, ironically, on the first pressing of this, they forgot his name on it. It was just Lennon McCartney, so they had to fix it later on.
Yeah, that's right. And for the song itself, I thought it was a good, just kind of upbeat, a little different, you know, but
little country sound, just like he was into.
And you know, definitely better than what we've heard from Ringo from back in the day.
All right, next up we're to Girl. Lennon sung it. He wrote the majority of it. He said it was about his ideal woman, no one he knew in particular, but just what he was looking for. He said he later found it, of course, in Yoko. And this has a lot of different world type influences in it.
Yeah, and I thought the lyricism here was just top notch. I definitely preferred this to Michelle and kind of the love song.
Yeah, some people kind of think that he wrote this in a contrast.
Yeah, and I think some of the best lyrics I've heard from Lennon so far have been on here, especially the verse where he's all like, what she told when she was young, that pain would lead to pleasure, and that he'd have to break his back and working hard and all that, and would it be worth it in the end? So just a bunch of great lines here, some of the strongest lyrics, and one of the highlights for me. Then we get into another great McCartney track, I'm Looking Through You. Just like You Won't See Me, it's written about Jane Asher again. Their relationships was really on the rocks, and there's a bunch of lines in here about just how you're speaking, but I can't hear you. I'm looking through you. You're there, but you're not there.
Love can be done overnight.
Yeah. Just a bunch of great lyrics here. Probably McCartney's strongest on this record.
Yeah, it contrasts some acoustic-based stuff with some faster kind of R&B stuff later on. This is my favorite performance of McCartney on here. I just think it's really, really good. Next up, we're to In My Life.
Oh man, this thing was fire.
Fire. Lennon wrote it. It's number 23 on the Rolling Stone Top 500 Songs of all time. And Mojo Magazine in the year 2000 called this the greatest song ever. So let's say this thing is decorated.
It has a very cool piano solo bridge here, but it's sped up 2 times.
Yeah, because George Martin plays it and he could not keep up with it.
Yeah, so very innovative, and it kind of sounds like a harpsichord.
Yes.
And that influenced a bunch of other pop records in the future. It's a really cool, unique sounding song, and Lennon said that this was his first really major piece of work.
He said everything else was fluff. That's typical John. Like, this is when it started.
This is like I think the defining song of nostalgia. He just writes about all the different places and people he's seen throughout his life. Some are dead, some are here, past lovers, and in his life he's loved them all. Like, I just thought this thing is great. It's sad in a sense, it's happy in a sense, because it just brings to mind the memories of your own life when you listen to it.
Yeah, I just think it's a tremendous work, his best one to date. I absolutely love it. It's my favorite one on the album.
Then we get into Wait. This song was written by McCartney, and this was actually going to be included on Help, but they chopped it off. It came back into the foray, and this is essentially about a guy telling his girl, hey, wait for me. It's like a long distance relationship, and they've had a couple other songs in the past that are allude to that. So
yeah, and I mean, one of the interesting parts in the lyrics, it kind of alludes to, wait for me, you be faithful, I'm being as faithful as I can be, whatever that means. And Lennon and McCartney kind of trade the vocals on here. And one of the interesting things about this, it's one of the only Beatles songs sung in a minor key. All right, next up, another Harrison-led track, If I Needed Someone. It was widely considered his best song to date. He wrote it for Pattie Boyd, who he married the next year.
This was, again, a little psychedelic infused here. Thought the guitar work on here was great. George, just throughout the entire record, kind of continues to mature.
Yeah, he's really leveling up.
It's just a very nice sound to it. And again, another interesting take kind of on love here. Kind of like, if I needed somebody, I'd be going with you. I already have a girl. But
yeah, it's somebody who wants to be with him. We're thinking a girl comes in and says, hey, I want to be with you. He's like, I'm already in love, but if I wasn't, you'd be the one.
You'd be the first one up.
I'd call,
So yeah, I thought that was kind of a unique take on it. And then we get to the album's closer, another Lennon-led track, Run for Your Life. Bro, this thing was intense, and I love the music behind it. Just like Dizzy Miss Lizzy on Help, a very upbeat way musically to end the album. Even with the lyrical content, I do love this song, and it's kind of an intense song about Lennon just saying he's kind of paranoid about this girl. If she's with another man, it's going to make him go crazy. You better run for your life, little girl.
And Lennon went on to say later on, this was his least favorite song he did. He regretted writing it because it's domestic violence, So for me, it's my least favorite song, and the fact that, it's hard once you know what the lyrics are saying. But I mean, if you just listen to it without really listening to and soaking in the lyrics, It's an absolute banging song, so it's kind of a conflicting thing. But right now we come to our favorite tracks. Mine are Nowhere Man, In My Life. Just, oh wow.
Oh yeah.
What a song. And then McCartney's I'm Looking Through You is a really underrated song in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of those, Sean. I think In My Life is maybe the best track we've heard so far.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, Lennon here just is on another level, and McCartney too. He just came out with so many great songs as well. I thought Drive My Car was nice, fun, different, and that brings us to our overall score of the album. What do you got, Sean?
This is where it gets a little tough, right? Mm-hmm. Drum roll. I struggle with this between a 9.25 and a 9.5. I'm going to give it a 9.25. Mm-hmm. I think it's tremendous. I think here's what I kind of wonder sometimes with the Beatles. Back in the day, you had to have 14 tracks. This is the sixth album we've done. 5 of them had 14 tracks, 1 of them had 13. Think if they had the luxury of going, we're only going to put 10 on here.
Yeah.
You know, because we talk about they had to, bring back tracks and record 3 of them on the last night. Like, imagine if they could cherry pick the best 10, but still a tremendous offering.
Yeah, and for me, this was my favorite record from them.
Yeah,
to
agreed.
date.
Oh, agreed.
And I'm gonna be just a little bit higher than you, Sean. I'm going to 9.75. Woo! And I just thought this thing was just unbelievable. A really nice mesh of styles from psychedelic to straight rock and roll to world music and everything in between. The stories in the songs were a lot deeper than we've heard thus far, and I'm a big fan of deep stories in the lyrics. So that's where I'm going to be at for that. And I guess that'll wrap up today's review. And I'm looking forward. We got Revolver next. I know that thing's freaking acclaimed out the wazoo as well.
Yeah, it is.
And so I'm really looking forward to that one, continuing to see their progression. You guys aren't lying. The music and the lyrics just continue to mature.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so just let us know, guys, what you think about Rubber Soul in the comment section below. What's your favorite track? Where would you rank it in their catalog? Be sure to hit that big red subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the uploads we do. We upload twice a week, continuing to rock out these Beatles for y'all guys. And I guess that's going to wrap it up. So thank you, Sean. As always, the research, the brains behind the operation.
I don't know about that. It's a pleasure.
And happy listening, my friends, and we will see you next time.